Walking a path along the roots of Pikes Peak, you take a fork in the road to the Anselm Society Digital Pub. Inside, you find a raucous conversation on the arts, faith, and who's that one person singing? They're really off pitch. At a corner table by the fire are three people. One of them is just sharing how he really wishes he could get into whittling at some point. He also has a voice that may be standing out in the music crowd. And that's me, Matthew Melema. Welcome to Believe to See. We are a podcast of the Anselm Society Arts Guild. Here at Believe to See, our goal is to help you connect the great story, the great stories, and your own story in order to explore what it means to have a Christian imagination. To find out more about the Anselm Society, visit us at anselmsociety.org. And while you're doing that, why not rate and review the show on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. We really appreciate it. Helps increase our profile, and you know all the rest by now. And something else you may hopefully know by now, if you've been following us the past couple months, is that this year, Anselm is running a series called Why We Create. It examines what it means for us as human creatures to subcreate in God's creation. So each month we explore a different theme related to this larger series. For July, that theme is Imago Dei. Imago Dei? Okay. Anyway, in a way, Imago Dei is the hinge of this entire series because it implicates the core questions at the heart of all of this. For instance, why did God make us? What does it mean to be human? What does it mean for us to be human image bearers made in God's image? And joining me to explore these and other topics are our co-hosts. First of all, Mandy Hauk. Mandy, welcome to the table.
Thank you for welcoming me to my own kitchen table. I'm just kidding.
Wow, really pulling the curtain back here. We're at the digital pub table. Listeners.
We're at the digital pub table.
Keep that image in your heads. Mandy, Imago Dei.
Well, I am the one who was saying Imago Dei, and then I was corrected by another Anselmer, and I looked it up because I didn't believe them, and they were right.
So it's Imago?
It's Imago.
Okay.
Yeah. There is one pronunciation, it's Imago Dei, but I think that was wrong. You know how sometimes Google pronounces completely incorrect?
Oh, yeah.
Pretty sure it's not Imago Dei.
Well, for me as a lawyer, there's lots of Latin terms that sneak in every now and then, and all of us, lawyers don't quite know how to say it right, so there's all these things like amicus curiae, amicus.
I thought it was amicus brief. Is it not amicus?
It's unclear. It depends on where you are.
We've talked before about being readers, and that if you learn your vocabulary by reading, you're probably saying things wrong. Like I used to say rhododendron.
How is that rhododendron? I used to say rendezvous for rendezvous.
Oh, that's a good one.
Oh, I'm going to use that.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, that is my new pronunciation. It's going to sweep the nation.
And also joining us at the table is our expert, our mage in all things Fae, Evangeline Denmark. Evangeline, what is your... you might as well share it now. What's the word that you mispronounced because you'd only read it?
Right now I can't think of one, but I will get back to you. But I have always followed the advice, or tried to, that if you don't know how to pronounce it, just pronounce it confidently.
That's the way it works with Bible names.
And some of the people in the audience won't know the difference.
Right. Or they'll be just really impressed.
They'll be like, oh, I must have been pronouncing
exactly.
it right.
Oh, yeah. What is that?
Let your confidence make people question
diaspora versus diaspora. Diaspora. I look and see it as diaspora.
I do too. And I also always said, and now I'm not going to remember which is right, behemoth or behemoth?
Behemoth, I think.
Behemoth is right.
Okay, then I used to say behemoth. And it was one day teaching my 9th grade English class, and I was teaching them that word, and all the 9th graders knew that I was wrong, and they all cracked up and never let me forget it. But
okay, behemoth, and how did you say, Ron?
Rendezvous, which is phonetic if you look at it.
It kind of sounds like a Harry Potter, like a spell. Rendezvous.
Rhododendron is phonetic also, just saying.
So another word that I now know is phonetic is Imago Dei, which we are exploring through the month of July, including this episode.
Yes.
So one of the things about it is what this means for all of us as human beings who have the Imago Dei. What does that mean in terms of when and how we should create art? I think I would love to somehow do an audience survey to get the breakdown, but I get a feeling we have, lots of both of these groups. Like the first group are people who they're artists or they're like working at their art, so like they're an artist, a writer, a musician, something. And then there's this other group, again, I don't know which one's bigger, but I'm sure they're both out there, that they don't actively create art, but they just enjoy talking about art, talking about these big questions, and you're all equally welcome at the table, don't worry.
Absolutely.
But what we want to ask here is, whatever group you're in, whether you're an artist who wants to try a different art form, or whether you don't think of yourself as an artist, but you'd like to, dip your toe in the artistic waters. Are there any parameters for knowing, like, when or how or why we should create? So that is sort of the big question. And here's a little hint. You're probably guessing. We're going to encourage you to create art. We're not going to be like, oh no, the children and the elderly and the untalented should not create art. But we're going to look at all these different things, like why it's important for children to create art, why you should pick up a new artistic skill even if you're an octogenarian. Yeah, why you should start singing even though you're like me and you just can't carry a tune. All this stuff. So before we dive in, I'd like to take the temperature of the table. Because I will say for me, I have this battle between the rational side of my brain and the primal part of my brain. The rational side is like, hey Matt, try these new art forms. They'd be fun. They'd help you in all these other ways. They could even, help you with your other artistic endeavors. Just do it. But then this primal part of me, it's like, no, if you're not good at it right away, don't do it. So that is my struggle. Mandy, what is yours? Or what are your priors for this?
What are my priors? You mean my temptations to try other art forms? I used to draw a lot as a teenager and I enjoyed it. And so every now and then I think of trying that again. And I actually I got second place in a cricket drawing competition, Cricket Magazine.
Oh, yeah.
But it was more of a cartoon. And honestly, unsurprisingly, I think the reason it placed at all was because it told a story. Because there was a little pig stuck in a fence and the other pig was worried about him. So anyway, but
do you still have that issue?
That if I told you, I'd have to kill you. No, I don't know. Yes, I do. I do. But so I think when I consider drawing again, I think I have this assumption that it's going to be as bad as it was back then. So there's no...
When you were an award-winning young artist?
Right. No, more like when I was the angst-ridden teenager who would draw people with their hands behind their backs because I couldn't draw their hands. Or I would always draw like my favorite pop stars, like the Thompson twins guys. And stop reminding me that I'm old. Make a who is that face. You don't know the Thompson twins? Have you seen 16 Candles?
I'm sorry, that sounds made up.
Have you seen 16 Candles?
I have seen 16 Candles.
Okay, well then you have heard the Thompson twins. Look up the soundtrack. They were fantastic. Hold Me Now.
It's Molly Ringwald, right?
Yes.
16 Candles?
Yes,
okay.
But she was not a Thompson twin. But anyway, I will show you my portrait of the Thompson twin guy. I still have all the old journals.
Yeah, that is definitely something.
But anyway, I guess I just feel like
I like to believe she has like some box in her attic that has all of like her drawings and love poetry to the Thompson twins.
Yes. To all of the bands that
I have loved before.
To all the bands I loved before.
Yes, right there with my squirrel romance that I wrote in.
Oh, and we're getting to that.
Grade.
Don't you worry, Mandy.
But so I think the problem is I assume that was the extent of my talent or lack thereof, so why try it again? But I certainly I think I write better than, for example, my squirrel romance. So I don't know why I have that mindset, just because it's the art I didn't pursue, that therefore I can't. That seems a little...
Well, I'm going to try to talk you into drawing again. Just like I'm going to try to talk myself into drawing again.
Okay.
Evangeline, what am I going to try to talk you into doing again?
Oh, probably a lot of things, because I have been a one-trick pony for a long time.
She's a thoroughbred.
A one-trick unicorn.
Yes, something like that. Well, words were like the most important thing in my house. Story was the most important thing in my house growing up. Not that music or art or anything else was less than, but that was just what we did. And that was always what came naturally to me. And it's kind of funny because our family is sort of split, like my nuclear family. My husband, as you guys know, can do anything he tries to do and is multi-dimensional in his talent.
Somehow we haven't killed him yet.
I've tried. I'm just not very good at anything besides writing, so that's been the problem.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
So basically, like you feel like everyone in your family has a thing, and your thing has always been right.
It always has been, and so there really, like, I didn't feel the need to expand, and I would enjoy, I don't know, like, I love music, so I would enjoy, going to concerts, listening to music, and there was like a brief moment where I very much wanted to play the violin, and I think that corresponded with me reading Anne Rice's violin in my angsty teen years. So that probably has something to do with that. But it wasn't until I really lost my ability to write in the last couple of years that I was sort of at loose ends, not knowing what to do, and I kind of think that art, like so many things in humanity, it's somewhere in between, and so we have to learn to appreciate and honor the greatness that we are capable of as humans, but also not take ourselves too seriously. And because it's like we are the image of God in these bodies that do weird and funny things. So it's always somewhere in between. So I have in the last couple of years been learning not to take myself too seriously and making art that is, like painting watercolors, which I am horrendously bad at.
No, they are not. I have one framed on my wall.
That's because you're you.
No, that's because I love it.
So I think this will be a big theme here. All of us saying the words we know to be true to try to convince each other of the things we feel. Because I'll tell you mine. Ever since I was a little kid, I love drawing cartoons. So like I developed my own like comic strip as a kid.
I don't know why. I just can't believe that about you.
Yeah.
I'm just not vibing with what I know.
But I never really pursued it a whole lot because I could always feel that I was like, I'll be honest. If I were to put myself on like a bell curve, I'd say I'm like in the 75th percentile for like drawing ability. Okay. I'm above average, but I'm not great at it. It's like certainly not great enough at it to like pursue it. And like my younger brother is a professional graphic designer, so he is great at it. So it's like, so that is my battle. I would enjoy it, and I have a passion for it, but I'm only pretty good at it when my younger brother's great at it. So that is my battle. But first, let's really dig in.
Okay.
To step one in our journey to convince ourselves to create art that we're bad at. Let's start with childhood art, because again, one of the things here is like, are you ever too young to start creating art? And again, I'm assuming we're all saying no.
Correct.
Like, I'm guessing neither of you, when your children were young, you'd be like, nope, you can't create any art until you're 12.
No Play-Doh for you.
That Play-Doh horse is terrible. Stop making art. I'm guessing none of you said that.
No.
But let's get into the reasons why all of us encourage the young children in our lives to create art, and why we all, I'm guessing anyone listening to this podcast just assumes naturally that that's a good thing. So, Mandy,
yes,
you have two daughters, one of whom was recently on this podcast.
Yes. When
they were young, what kind of art did they do? What did you do to help encourage it?
With Bethany, I didn't really have to encourage her to do or make anything, because it's just an impulse with her. You just had to provide her with, the newspaper spread out so she wouldn't make too much of a mess. She was always making stuff outside and inside, and Emmy was, and this is very interesting because this kind of goes into your mental block. So she primarily would draw, but also write songs and sing, not write songs, but you just sing them off the cuff. I think her first composition was about her little sister. It was something like, Bethany, you were so fun to meet, you were so fun to meet. Something about I love your little toes and you were so fun to meet. It was a masterpiece. Anyway, so she was 3. So she would go around making up songs and stuff like that, and she would draw. But when I was homeschooling, I believe she was in maybe first grade, and we were doing this really great unit on art, which I loved. And it didn't occur to me how seriously she was absorbing the example art that we were told to show them. And so she was supposed to choose an animal, and she chose a cat, of course. And she was first supposed to do an abstract representational, then a realistic representational, and then a non-representational, whatever.
A non-representational cat?
I don't...
A dog?
I know, as soon as I said that, I wonder, I don't remember the
There's a
answer.
potted fern. It's a non-representational cat.
Anyway, I don't remember. But the point is, when we were doing the realistic representational, they had us, is it Albrecht Bierstadt who did or Albert Dürer.
Oh, I
with
love
the
him.
hair.
I love him.
Can you see it in your head right now?
You don't want to make that your standard if you're 10.
That's what they had. She wasn't even 10, Matt. She was like 6. So that is what they had me show her. And then I'm like, yeah, so see, but all I thought, I'm like, see how this actually looks like a rabbit? That's what you're going to try to draw, something that looks like a cat. Oh my gosh. She was sitting in there, and I was like making lunch or whatever, corralling Bethany, because she was only 3 and running around doing whatever. And she was in there forever, and I kept going back in there, and she had nothing, because she just kept erasing everything she was drawing. Aww. And then she burst into tears. Aww. And she said, I can't make my cat look alive. Aww. Like the rabbit looked alive. And I was like, no. So then we had this whole block of I can't do it if I can't make it look like I want it to look. Mm-hmm. And so that was the hurdle I had to get over with Emmy for a lot of things. Really, just getting over it. So sorry, Emmy.
I can really sympathize with 6-year-old Emmy.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, mm-hmm. But obviously she's gotten over that now. I mean, she's the managing editor of a magazine, so she knows things don't always turn out the way you want them to, and we get over it. But that was a pretty hard block to hit at 6 years old.
Well, I think it's illustrative of a lot of the stuff we go through as adults. It's just when you're a kid, I think you're feeling the same things. Just you have the benefit of wearing it on your sleeve, so we all know it, right?
Right. Yes.
So I can see me now as an adult doing the same thing. I tried to get back into drawing a little bit a year or so ago, and I got quickly frustrated because it didn't look like the examples I was working off of. Mm-hmm. Just because I'm an adult, I didn't burst into tears and say that. I was just like, forget this, and I moved on. Mm-hmm. But I think it's also interesting then to sort of interrogate why we all of us listeners are thinking, oh, Emmy, no, keep practicing. Why, Evangeline, why was your reaction same as mine, same as I was like, no, keep going, even if it doesn't look good right away?
Why was my reaction? That's a good question. I mean, that's like a deep sort of response. No, it's worth trying, and you can enjoy this, and that's mm-hmm. the point, right, really, of creating. Maybe not the point. The point, I suppose, is to create because we are created in God's image, and He creates. But He enjoys His creation.
Well, and
I mean, we see that in Genesis.
I think of Jane, when Jane was talking about how rejection doesn't bother her, and because Jane Charles, mm-hmm. and she was talking about because she loves the process so much. So mm-hmm. somehow along the way, and so Emmy never worried about the songs she wrote and the stories she wrote and things like that.
Because she loved the process.
Because she loved the process. Maybe that was key.
So that's what we want when we're encouraging our young children. Love the process, not perfection.
And let them pursue the process that they fall in love with.
And that's like always the battle with any kind of art.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. So I think that's a really good point to draw from that. It's like, hey, don't get hung up on what the finished product is. Do the process. Enjoy the process. Enjoy this whole creation act right now. Some related points, I think, are, first of all, like, it's so basic. Like, I tell it to my 6-year-old all the time. It's like, buddy, it's okay if it doesn't look good right away. You practice so that you'll get better.
Right.
You know, like, which, again, sounds so basic, but, again, grown-up me, if I were to start taking, like, a watercolor class, I could see myself getting super frustrated if my first one looked bad. So
Then I'll have to take it with you and then say, buddy.
you keep practicing so it'll look better.
What if it doesn't?
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, there you go.
Because
What
then
if
we
it
are
doesn't?
faced with, what do you then, tell your child? I mean, it's good to say, you practice and you get better.
It could be, maybe I could keep watercoloring every day for the rest of my life and it would all just be bad because I'm bad at it. Like, that's on the table.
Yeah, so you have
That
to
is on the table.
Reframe what you're encouraging, I
Yeah,
guess.
so then it's...
Yeah.
So I think underlying that then is this assumption, again, when we're dealing with kids, it's all crystal clear. The assumption that creating the thing in and of itself is a good thing. Like, it is good for you to create something.
Because it's like we innately recognize that is part of their development. Like they, model the little animal with clay, and that's part of understanding the real animal, and they, draw to understand. We know that it's part of their process as a child, so why do we not know that that's part of our process of still learning about the world as adults?
Because we think we're all done.
We think we know. I know what a giraffe is.
I am fully cooked. Done.
That's right. We obviously recognize the growth mindset with kids and encourage them to have that. But just as true for the rest of us non-young children listening.
I'm a non-young child. That's why.
We all are, maybe.
Yes. I had a teenager once tell me, I like you because you're a grown-up, but not really.
Aw,
And that was like the best thing anyone's ever said.
that's
I'll take
okay.
it.
Yeah.
But no, I think that once we get to be adults, it's all about comparing ourselves to others.
Yeah.
And
we
practicality.
and we're all putting on the act that we've all got it figured out. And so then we put on that act to ourselves.
Yep.
I don't
Until
really
we
know
weep in
what
our,
a giraffe is.
beds at 3 a.m.
Yeah.
and can't go back to sleep.
Oh.
Wow.
Well, this podcast
Sorry, this
took
is
a
a
turn.
downer.
Good, dark.
But yeah, so like for me, I'll share one of the stories that just literally happened today. My 5-year-old, I think I've told folks on podcasts about this before. He's super into Godzilla movies. Maybe I had something to do with it. I don't know. Maybe it just came to it
It's
naturally.
genetic.
But he has been going through this phase where he will get like a ream of paper and just fly through it, creating Godzilla drawing after Godzilla drawing. And he will create books where he'll get the Godzilla drawing and he'll have Godzilla, Rodan, Mothra, all the different monsters, and he'll get them into a book, have my wife staple it together. He created 5 books today.
Awesome.
And he shared them with me. He like added himself as like a little stick figure writing on the back of Mothra. And you can see like it tells a little story. And again, it's just, I was thrilled because, it shows he's working at something, he's being creative, he's using his imagination. You can tell he's learning like the pieces of a story. And you can tell like he's so pleased with how it turned out. Like he couldn't wait to share with me. Like he left it on the doormat in front of on the garage so I could see it first thing when I came home.
Oh, that is precious.
So yes, that again, when we frame it in the terms of a 5-year-old doing that, it makes perfect sense. But I guess our point is it should also make sense for the other ages.
Yeah.
Speaking of other ages,
Yes.
let's turn the clock forward just a little bit to a time when they are still young, but they're not quite adults. I'm talking about like maybe middle school, high school, college, the sort of late juvenilia to like angsty teen writing.
Yeah.
Evangeline, you mentioned you may have done some of your own angsty teen writing back in the day. How do you feel about that now?
I do hope that it never gets found. I am, nervous because I don't know where it is.
It is
but I don't think
large.
don't think I've destroyed it, and that it haunts me thinking of being dead many years from now. My children finding this and
You'll be dead. It's okay.
yeah, but yeah, it'll be fine. I can't be embarrassed. I'm dead. But I genuinely feel for artists and authors who have become, famous through the ages, and then their early stuff is because they're famous and they're amazing.
Yeah.
Their early stuff is their early stuff. It just, it's part of the process. So I'm glad that I wrote it. I don't regret writing my angsty poetry as a teenager. I just, don't want anybody to see it. So, but yeah, I was thinking as you were talking, because I have a kid who's a performer, but it's really hard as a parent and as an artist to know what to say to them about, how do you pursue art in your life while also, you need to live your life. You need to being
able to make money.
And that's what we've talked about. What if it isn't profitable monetarily and practically? Well, what do you do then with art? So I don't know. That made me think of it because I'm genuinely searching for how to explain. You should do it for your soul,
Right.
but you may decide not to pursue that performing arts degree in college. Maybe not. Because, saying that to an 18-year-old, you should do this for your soul, somehow doesn't hold a lot of weight with them.
No, because everyone's asking the 18-year-old, what are you
going to do?
What career do you want?
Yeah.
Yeah, and part of being 18, I think everyone here can attest to this, is you don't want to feel like you're already selling out. You want to go full out and friggin' do it.
You don't want the office job yet.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I know for me, so I majored in English. And
English majors unite.
I graduated from college at the absolutely apex of the recession. And I was for a while, I was all right, I'm just gonna friggin' write. I'm gonna be a starving artist and I will friggin' write. And I made it a few months in before I realized I am miserable. This isn't gonna work. And then a few months later, I started studying for law school.
Yay.
But ironically, once I did that, and I kind of took the pressure of I need to make my money from art, I actually produced more art.
Yeah.
Even though when I was a starving artist, I theoretically had all the time in the world, I was too busy being depressed and loathing myself to actually create art. So now that I have a gainful employment, I can create art.
The real artist life, being depressed and loathing myself so much I can't create art.
Well, I was so afraid of not being able to make it as a writer. I switched from English. I was only an English major for a year and a half. I switched to psychology. Most people don't know this about me, but now you do, and our millions of listeners. So I switched to psychology because I was no, it's going to hurt too much if I fail, because I love writing too much. So kids, don't do that.
I think there are a couple lessons there that I want to touch on before getting back to the angsty teen poetry.
Oh yeah, sorry.
I'm not done with the angsty teen poetry. Sorry, Evangeline, you're not off the hook.
Hey,
Please.
I was an angsty teen in college. No, I'm kidding.
Please.
I was a slow bloomer.
I have my own. Let's just go right there.
Do we all
Let's
have
go right there.
angsty?
Go ahead.
I remember times from what age, middle of high school through latter part of college, where I would just feel compelled to create. You have this upswelling of emotion that you just don't know what to do with. You're one of those wizards in the Harry Potter prequels that aren't very good, where the magic just needs to get out and you can't restrain it anymore, right? And so I just had to create. At the time I was writing, I was this is one of the most important things any modern human has put on paper, because no one knows the full depth of my feeling like me. No one's ever felt these things before. You see, here's the thing. In high school, I had a crush on a girl who, get this, didn't like me back.
Yeah, that's
So that, as far as I knew, that had never happened to anyone before.
No, not me.
So-
All the boys I like.
Obviously,
this must be addressed.
So now,
Poetry.
yeah, exactly. So, like, my pen was like burnt, like.
Smoke
Yeah,
is
smoke
rising
rising from the pen.
page.
So obviously, I'm now mortified of it, and like you, Evangeline, I'm not totally sure where those notebooks are. So I'm kind of
See, I know where all of mine are.
Smart.
They're locked up.
But I would still, if I could go back in time to, talk to, like 16-year-old Matt. First of all, I'd say get rid of the frosted tips.
I
You'll
was
come to
gonna
regret
ask.
them.
I was
Frosted
gonna
tips.
ask. Frosted tip
Second,
era.
I would say keep writing. This is, don't get me wrong, 16-year-old Matt. I, as an adult, am humiliated by what you're about to do.
Cringing in retrospect.
Terrible.
You should still do it.
You should do it and then burn it.
Yeah. Right, Evangeline, you would, what would you
Yes.
say to 16-year-old you? Would you say, hey, keep doing it? Keep
Yeah.
writing that angsty poetry?
Well, I've been asked this question before. I would say yes, continue writing the angsty poetry, but also go and play D&D with your brother so you can learn how to plot. Yeah.
Yep. So what would you say then? Well, obviously, the value of plotting that you get from D&D is obvious. But what is the value of the angsty poetry, even if the person who wrote it now seems kind of alien to you, and you find the poetry, well,
Cringy.
I don't want to talk to you. Yeah,
Cringy.
like you find it cringy and embarrassing and all this. Given all that, what's the value of doing it?
Because it's working out humanity, and because it's just part of being a human. And Romeo and Juliet were teenagers, and they were,
There's a
yes.
reason they both ended up dead.
Yeah, there's some angst.
If they were a couple 30-somethings, I feel like they would have worked it out.
Yeah, they would have gotten office jobs. It would have been fine.
No, Romeo would have married at least 7 times. Come on.
Yeah, probably so.
He was in love with someone else right before he met Juliet.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Rosalind. Yeah, but it's working out how to be human. It's just like working out, what an animal is by, imitating it in clay or in art. It's part of the process.
Mandy, anything that you would add to your 16-year-old self?
Oh, man. I would tell her to stop wearing her father's cardigans to school all the time.
Oh my gosh, that's adorable.
It really wasn't. Anyway, my dad was 6'4", 250 pounds. Anyway, that's the only thing I can think of other than, I don't know. I drew a lot of crying eyes. I would draw like entire pages of eyes with tears coming out of them. And I don't know.
Wow.
The psychology major is making some more sense now.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Honestly, that does. Sorry, I keep trying. Maybe I really don't want to talk about my angsty years because I keep trying to fast forward to college.
Yeah,
apparently.
Matt. We don't want to talk about this.
Fair enough.
I want to go straight from squirrel romances to college. I don't want to talk about. No, I'm just kidding.
So let that be a lesson. If there are there are some listeners here. You're like teenager. You're in college. All this stuff. Again, keep writing. Keep doing
writing,
it. It's
yes.
good for you. It's good practice. Like Evangeline said, it's a way to help teach you how to become human.
Yeah.
But also make sure you know where you put your works.
Yes.
So that when you, maybe 20 years down the road, when you're more used to this art thing and you can burn it before your children can find it.
Oh, but theirs is all digital.
You know what? I just remember.
It's all on the
It's in the
cloud.
Oh yeah.
Oh, that's
I just
findable.
remembered
Xi Jinping is reading it right now.
A couple of my angsty-ish ones were in the literary journal for my high school.
Oh,
You can't escape.
So you actually.
But I don't regret any piece of art I made. I was sitting here trying to, because some of it is good for comedy, looking back. A lot of it is good for remembering what it's like to be a kid, and so it helps you relate to your own children or children you run across that in church or wherever. It helps you, because I think as we get older, we learn that we're supposed to pretend to be fine. And so it's good to remember the teenagers, I don't know, I think it helped me to be open to whatever my children were feeling at any given time, because I remember, because of all the art, the bad, sad, crying eye art I made, I remembered how it felt in those times, and it really did feel like the world was ending, that Mike Floor didn't like me. He ended up being a deadhead, literally. He followed the Grateful Dead around for almost 10 years, so I think it's okay that that did not work out. He's the anti-Peter.
Mike, if you're listening to this, sorry, you blew your chance.
I don't know
That
if
ship
Mike
has sailed, Mike.
I'm not sure he's still alive, sadly. But anyway, but just being able to remember the weight of your feelings because you've put them in the poetry and the art, it helps you not take your kids' feelings lightly. Let them feel the weight. They really do think, just like the 3-year-old thinks the world has ended because her ice cream melted. Don't tell her it's not a big deal. It is. It's a big deal to her. If the 3-year-old could write a sonnet about melted ice cream, it would be really heartbreaking.
Yep. I like
she would.
that. It's my mom was cleaning out some of like the old closets in her house, and she found a box of my old stuff, and some of it is my juvenilia. And I was actually really thrilled to find it because it's an insight into you see it and like the memories trigger that's like, oh, that's right. I remember what it was like to be 10 now, because I remember what it was like to make this really corny comic strip about a cartoon dog. And it was really great. And I suspect if I ever do find my angsty teen poems, first of all, I would lock them up after reading. But if I were to read it, I agree with you. It'd be like, oh yeah, that's right. I did that. That is how I felt. That's how I view the world. This is useful for me to know because, someday my kids will probably be feeling that way. And that would help me to, be able to sympathize more.
Yeah, I think as the cynicism sets in and hardens, we lose the ability to be honest with our feelings on paper.
Yeah.
So, or in art, which I guess is sometimes still on paper, clay, whatever, music. Yeah. I don't know. I'm trying to make sure I cover everything.
Well, speaking of which, let's now turn the dial ahead way to talk about folks that this is just sort of an embodied example of it. People learning new art at like an older age, right? Because I know, I feel like a lot of us are like, well, I'd like to learn a new art form, but I turned 26, right? So now I can't, or something like that. But if you look to actual examples from real people, you can see that there are actually people who were able to learn something at a much older age. Mandy, you were telling us about one painter in particular.
Yes, I was, and I hope the listeners are more familiar with her. But Grandma Moses.
Ooh, we've been schooled.
You have been schooled.
Wow.
I was very surprised. That was pointed.
Okay.
Yeah, Grandma Moses.
Mandy gave me and Evangeline her disappointed school teacher face.
I did. I even put on my little half glasses. Now, Grandma Moses was 78 years old when she started painting in earnest, so to speak. And I believe one of her paintings, let's see, she died in 1961 at age 101.
Wow.
So even though she didn't start till she was 78, she painted for quite a long time. And she also was known for embroidery, but it's folk art and it's just delightful. One of her paintings sold for a couple $1 million in 2006. So I'm just really glad that she didn't take a minute to think, why would I try to paint? I'm 78 years old. What kind of silly notion is that? And also, one of my favorite books is Cold Sassy Tree, which is a hilarious literary novel by a woman named Olive Ann Burns, and she didn't write it until she was in her 70s. Unfortunately, in her case, boy, this is going to be a downer. But anyway, that's the only book she got to write, and then we'll just leave it at that. But it was a really good book, and I'm glad that she did that. And as you guys know, I like to call myself the old one, because relatively I am. But in this room. But I was just the other day, I think I told you this, Matt. I was thinking about, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm 52 years old. When am I ever going to write? If I ever do get published, that's going to be like the main thing. It's going to be this 50-something-year-old woman published a book. And that's going to be like what it's known for if I ever get published. But then I was thinking, because of that whole fear thing where I was like afraid of actually trying to write a novel, or write in earnest, I didn't actually start writing until 2004. So writer Mandy isn't even 20 years old yet.
There you go.
So
She's still in her angsty phase.
I am. I'm in my angsty phase.
Yeah.
And I just think I wasted so much time as a young person thinking it'll hurt too much if I fail. And then, now that I'm old enough and have raised my children, and I waste too many days or hours at least sitting here thinking, oh, it's too late. And there's no reason to let your thoughts like that stop you. It's nonsensical, because the time is going to pass anyway. So what are you going to do as the time is passing? Pursue what you love.
Yep. And again, Mandy, let's let the group hive mind.
Yes, sir.
When someone publishes a novel in their 50s, I don't think society generally bats an eye. Like, oh, a 50-something wrote a book. Yeah, that's where a lot of people are when they write books,
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. I don't know. I'll pretend to believe you.
Okay. Well,
Thank you for assuming I'll be published.
Can give you the logic. It's just.
Thank you.
It's just like you said, we're all here trying to convince each other of what we already.
Our rational selves convincing our brainstem selves.
Yeah.
Yes.
Take that, Mandy's brainstem.
I'll absorb.
But the case for, like older people learning new art forms, but really it just sort of casts into starker relief the same principle that would apply to literally anyone of any age, right? It's like
Yes.
the thoughts that we tell ourselves, like, oh, I can't pick up something new, I'm all done.
Yes.
I'm all done growing, or what if I fail? What if I'm bad at it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So let's focus on like each of these problems then. Let's start with the first one. What if I try it and I am bad at it? I will give again my examples. I tried singing when I was little and I was so bad at it. I was like, I just can't do it. Like, I cannot match a pitch. Or for me, again, with cartooning, where I feel like I might be above average at it, but not good enough where I feel like I would want to pursue it. So do you think there is value in me, like, just really in earnest, like, getting one of those fancy iPads with like a little drawing electronic pen and downloading some stuff and like practicing, even if best case scenario, I'm pretty good?
I think so. I mean, I'm not sure what you mean when you say you're not that good at it, because I think particularly in cartooning, you can have very simple lines, and it doesn't have to be. You're not trying to make it look like Albert Durer's rabbit.
That's what I want it to look like.
But then it wouldn't be a very good cartoon. That's not a cartoon. That's fine art. So I would think he should pursue it.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned, I'm just sticking on, you mentioned should I get a fancy iPad and all of that. And that to me is, I don't know, kind of represents the trappings of what we feel we have to do to be serious, Do I have to get, a degree? Do I have to pay for lessons necessarily? Maybe, because it is good to study.
Yes.
and good to value getting better in quality, especially when we're older. It's good to value quality. But at the same time, we don't need to take ourselves too seriously. So, I don't know, we're like right there in the middle, like always. It's because it's individual. Right. Is it gonna help you be a better human? Either by teaching you something, or by providing relaxation, enjoyment, joy.
Well, what was it at the guild meeting, the last guild meeting? Caleb I can't remember who he was quoting, but he said that trauma is the opposite of, or play is the opposite of trauma, or both. I mean, it means the same thing. I just can't remember which came first in the quote.
Yeah,
I think it was trauma
really
is the opposite of play. And so, I think sometimes if you're bad at something and you know you're bad at it, but you're doing it anyway, maybe that's even more
valuable,
healing.
Yeah.
Because you're doing it simply for the process, and it really doesn't, you're not monetizing it. You're not thinking about what will, other people think when they look at it, because you're not going to have a gallery show. Yeah. And then it really is purely play for play's sake.
That's like, when I was writing songs like last year, just to play with words, because I love to play with words, and with no intention ever to show it to anybody.
Right.
Because, that's not my gift. But yeah, it was fun.
Yeah.
It was, and that was valuable.
And I want to know, you say you can't carry a tune. Are you tone deaf, or can you hear that you're not carrying it? Are you aware that you're not carrying the tune?
I am aware, based on the reaction of others around me, that I'm likely not sounding good.
There you go. Likely not.
And
so put blinders on and sing away. That's what I say.
Just hold the book, like the hymnal up in church,
exactly.
And I can't see anybody. You
Put your
can't see
COVID
me.
mask over your eyes and sing.
every now and then, when you stumble on matching the note, right? You sort of fall on.
There it is.
Someone's like, something's happening. But
it's magic.
It's just like this burst of magic that I can't control.
But that's fun, right?
Yeah,
That's fun. So do it.
You're like, hey Danielle, did you hear me hit that one note?
Well, and the thing is, when I'm around Danielle, like my family, I will sing.
Oh, good.
I will sing. It's just
Well, you've sung on the pod before.
I've sung on the pod
But
before.
we're in a pub, so we have to sing.
That is one of the things where I would never do it in a serious situation.
Right.
But I enjoy singing, knowing that I'm kind of making myself look ridiculous, but I'm cool with that.
That's good.
Yeah, so maybe one of the reasons why I gave up my cartoon drawing last time is I did it kind of with something in the back of my head, what if I get just good enough about this to put it on my website, or can illustrate, can accompany a story or something.
Yeah.
Which, I don't know, maybe, but that also sort of put it ooh, there's a goal I need to meet, and that I can fall short of it, instead of just I'm just gonna fiddle around with this, maybe it'll be good, maybe not, but whatever.
Well, Leigh Finger, our author that we like to talk about, because have you read Peace Like a River yet? I'm going to ask you every episode. That's a no. Okay.
Process.
Anyway, when he started writing Peace Like a River, he and his brother had written some cowboy novels that didn't really go over very well, and he was a journalist in public radio, and so he was like, that's fine, I'm not going to be a fiction writer, I'll just write for fun. And so then he would write it and then read it to his children, and he kept writing it based on their reactions, and they'd be like, we need more of Sweet, the girl in the book, and stuff like that. And then that's the one that won book awards and is assigned in colleges and high schools, and it's a beautiful book.
And in podcasts.
Yes. He gets mentioned on podcasts all the time.
No, assigned reading on podcasts.
Oh, yes, on podcasts. Yes, yeah. yes, it is. Anyway, but so to me, it's almost, the success of that book was almost because he let go of thinking of the outcome.
Yeah, and you see that with a lot of books where they got started. It was sort of the author just like, I'm going to tell a story to my kids. And then like that, that's sort of what it turned into. Like Winnie the Pooh was that way.
Yes.
Alice in Wonderland was that way. Green Ember was that way.
Really?
Shout out to S.D. Smith, friend of the show. But yeah, that does make sense. And it reminds me, I had to explain myself because before the show started, I had my earbuds in and was watching a video on my phone. But it was because I was watching an episode of Community, which hit this perfectly. It is season 1, episode 19, Beginner Pottery.
Okay.
Also, a little bit of trivia here. Friend of the podcast, Nathan Clarkson, is actually a featured extra on this show.
Ooh.
Oh.
Yeah, so he is one of the Greendale Community College students and is shown for quite a while.
Oh,
It's
interesting.
Very cool. But anyway, in this episode, Jeff, the cool lawyer, is
Based on you.
Thank you.
Obviously.
Well, no, we actually could hardly be more dissimilar in personalities.
Okay.
But Jeff, the cool lawyer, is taking a pottery class, and his idea is just to like get an easy, passing credit and be like the cool guy who doesn't care. But then he realizes there's another cool guy in the class who's really, really, really good at pottery.
Uh-oh.
So Jeff decides to try. And when he tries, he realizes he's still really bad at it.
Oh, no.
So he talks to the sort of old grumpy character in the group, Pierce, who talks about how when Pierce was born, he had the umbilical cord wrapped around both ankles, his shoulders, his arms. At one point, the doctor stopped delivering him just so he could laugh. And he says, if I ever let being bad at something stop me, I wouldn't even be here.
Oh, because you're bad at being bored?
Exactly. So then Jeff goes back and says something that really stuck with me to the cool guy who's good at pottery. Jeff says, well, I'm bad at pottery. I'm an amateur pottery enthusiast, trying as hard as I can at something I suck at. And it's great. It's like, yes.
I love that.
Yes. So, maybe I can just be an amateur cartooning / singing in tune / whittling, I'll get into that later,
Or
enthusiast.
Or out of tune.
I'm trying as hard as I can at something I suck at, and it's great.
Yeah.
Because as what was it? In the book Supper of the Lamb, they point out that the word amateur comes from the word to love.
It does?
So, yep, so if you're an amateur at something,
Okay.
you do it because you love it, not because you're good at it.
Aw.
Yeah.
I like that.
Well, we are winding down in time, so we can probably make...
Whittling.
What?
Whittling?
Oh, you want me to mention whittling? Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, did I like derail us?
Promised twice to mention whittling.
I was this close, like a year ago, to like getting all the equipment I needed to become a whittler. Because I saw this video just like
You
this...
need wood and a knife?
Yeah,
That's all
no,
the
you
equipment.
get like there's you could just get a regular knife,
You
or
could.
you could go to like Hobby Lobby and spend like $10 for like a couple knives, right?
Okay.
So I saw this video where like this good old boy was like sitting on his porch. He has like this long like beard, and he's just like talking about whittling and stuff. And it was like, yeah, I could see me just sitting on the porch, with my knife and a scrap of wood whittling.
I feel like Corey would join you. So
Oh, I
if you
know
ever
he
need
would.
a
Yeah,
buddy, a whittling buddy,
Yeah, but do you really want to sit side by... Does anyone want to sit side by side with Corey and try to make whatever art he's also making?
Corey would probably be just
That would
really
be
good at whittling.
That would be... He would be too good. So we'd have to let go of needing to be good, for sure.
That would actually be a good discipline for
That
me,
would be a
because
good
I would be
discipline.
by Corey, his would be like, oh look, here's a realistic...
Replica of the Mona Lisa.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like,
3D.
well, I'm making kind of a spear.
I'm
which
making,
I intended to make.
I'm making a leadless pencil.
So that'll probably be next on the docket for me.
Yeah.
Would either of you like to make one last pitch from your rational selves to your brainstem selves?
I would just say that I am enjoying writing the novel I'm writing now more than I wrote the ones I wrote before, because I finally have stopped thinking about somebody reading it. I'm writing a book that I would like. I'm writing it more like a reader, which is another reason I don't outline. Anyway, I like not knowing what's going to
So
happen.
you're writing the book that you'd like to read.
Exactly.
Okay.
So I highly recommend it.
All right.
We'll see if it works, if I get published before I'm 60.
No artificial
It's
goals
normal.
here, Mandy.
Normal for 60-year-olds to be
7.5
published. That's totally normal.
For their first book?
Sure.
Okay.
Of course.
Ow.
I'm gonna Google.
You're fine.
What about
Yeah.
you, Evangeline?
I honestly don't know. What should I tell my rational self? Should I do more watercolor? I really want to do dance class, but I
Do dance class.
never. Oh, I'm so clumsy.
Do dance
You know
class.
me. You've seen me
If
walk.
we just told tone deaf Matt to sing, then you need to do dance class.
Oh dear.
Yeah.
We have gotten ourselves into it.
And then
Some
you
sort
can
of
have a recital
competition.
where he sings the
Yeah,
song
you want me to
that
sing
you
Falling
dance
Slowly right now?
to. So
I don't know you, but I want you.
do a pirouette, Evangeline. Hey, that Anselm November pub night, I think.
Oh no. What has she
you go.
done to us?
And
Throwing down the gauntlet.
let the listener understand, in my head just now, I thought I sounded pretty good. But
She
anyway,
sounded okay too.
Evangeline, Mandy, thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
talking my brainstem off the edge and talking some sense to me. And for the rest of you, things are winding down at the Anselm Society Digital Pub. The fire's down to embers, customers are trundling home, and you've polished off your final glass. Once again, Believe to See is a podcast of the Anselm Society Arts Guild. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next time. Real quick, we want to share with our listeners the incredible opportunity to be a part of the Anselm Society's annual gathering, the Imagination Redeemed Conference. The dates for our 2022 conference are September 30th through October 1st, and once again, it will be held at Glen Erie Castle in Colorado Springs. That's right, Colorado Springs, we have our own castle. The theme this year is what to do with the time that is given to us. We'll explore a theology of time and take a deeply practical look at the relationship between God's eternity and the ways we wrestle with our own time. How can God redeem our past, both personal past and our corporate past? And how can we face the future with hope rather than anxiety on the one hand or naive optimism on the other? Please, please, please visit our website at anselmsociety.org and look into getting tickets for this year's Imagination Redeemed Conference. Hope to see you there.